Welcome to ZAMI NOBLA's Plant Play. And this is session 3, and I am Carla DeRosa. I'm so happy to be here with you. I'm so excited. So grateful for this opportunity. I love playing with plant food. And as I mentioned, this is our 3rd session, but if you're new, just a little bit about me. I'm Carla Rabb DeRosa, and I call myself a food rock star. I focus on raw food and vegan alternatives. And today we have 4 delicious recipes. The recipes that I came up with is kind of organic because I'm not a chef. I had some health challenges, it was about 15 years ago, some severe health challenges that I was able to remedy through raw food and plant-based food. And as I've mentioned in the past, like I was not eating meat, but I was not necessarily eating for the nutritional medicine that is in food. I was eating a lot of processed, prepackaged vegan options that still have a lot of chemicals that don't necessarily work with our body and work with our health. So as I was working with my health and going more raw, I went to the Living Foods Institute. And they started in Atlanta and kind of ended their course. But I was a student there, an instructor there, and then I went out on my own and started coaching people in raw and living foods, as well as vegan food preparation. So that's how I got here today, just from trial and error, finding out how I could keep the recipes what I consider sticky, that make me want to come back to them because of their taste, even though they're highly medicinal, they have healing properties. But a lot of times we associate healing properties with not tasting so good. But I love food. I consider myself a foodie. So I consider that my expertise, how to make healthy food taste good so that you think about it, you want it, you make it a practice, you make it a habit so that you feel good. You're able to eventually lose weight, detox, and come off your meds. So that's a little bit about my background with plant-based foods. So with our plant play session today, we're going to do 4 recipes. And last time we did some recipes that were a little bit more advanced. So this time I said, okay, let's do some simple recipes. Let's do some things that are my favorites that I think taste really good. And we're gonna start with Crispy Chix'n. So I'm not a real, even when I was growing up, I was really not a chicken person because my mother, we had chicken every day. So, but being in the plant-based world, you want something for protein. You want something even in your mind mentally to replace that, in standard American fare, the protein, the meat is always the main star on your plate. So today we're going to make crispy chicken using organic, pressed, or also you could use extra firm tofu. So tofu is a little bit controversial, but I want to tell you why I think that is a good option for plants, for plant eating, to incorporate into your diet. When I was working at the Living Foods Institute, and part of my training was we went totally soy-free. Part of it is because there are some isoflavones that are inside of tofu that can mimic estrogen, but it's a plant-based estrogen, very low. It does not necessarily, there aren't any documented research showing that it's adverse health. And in fact, I think the opposite is true. So I like to look at just anthropologically the things that are working for people. So up until recently, Asian women as a group, and I know Asia is a big area with a lot of different ethnicities, but Asian women as a group had lower cases of breast health problems, namely breast cancer, cysts, and tumors. And part of their habits are they don't do a lot of dairy. So that's one thing. We know that our dairy has growth hormones, and they do a lot of tofu. And so it has been part of my thinking that organic tofu can be healthful and a good substitute for meat mentally. So today we're going to make our crispy chicken. So with the crispy chicken, like as I mentioned, you're going to use extra firm or pressed. So pressed is kind of packaged a little bit differently. It has some water, not as much. This is the one that you typically find that's kind of floating in water, but any one you get. So this is the one that's kind of floating in water. But either one you get, you want to make sure to press the water out of it. I'm going to use the one that's pre-pressed. Get some of the water out of it. So, and just looking at the breast health statistics with Asian women as a group, one of the reasons why I like to look at them is because for study purposes, they are determined to have dense breast tissue, just like Black women have dense breast tissue. So I think that, you know, on a DNA level, there's some commonalities. I know I have dense breast tissue, so that's always been an issue in terms of diagnostics with my mammograms. I haven't gotten my thermography yet, but women who've gotten thermographies, they say their breast tissue is a factor. So that's another reason why I like to look at that analogy of what they've traditionally eaten, because what's interesting is over the last 2 decades, as Asian women have westernized their diets, their rates of breast cancer have gone up. All right, so we have our pre-pressed tofu, and we've pressed it out with our paper towel. And so there are many different shapes that you can have with chicken, just like you have different chicken parts. You can make chicken nuggets, you can make chicken cutlets, and you can also make chicken strips. So I'm gonna make a few of each, just to give you. So I'm cutting down the tofu square, so I've made 3 cuts here. So this would be a cutlet. All right, these that are a little bit more fragile. I'm gonna make some strips out of this one. And these, we can make some nuggets. And so another thing that we talked about is going grain-free or using less grains. And a lot of times when we think of like crispy, we're thinking of flouring it using wheat flour. But we're gonna make a mixture where we're not gonna use any wheat. We're gonna make a coating for our cutlets, our strips, and our nuggets. That's not gonna use any wheat or white flour. It's gonna be totally grain-free. So the recipe is a 1/2 cup of nutritional yeast. And I always say this, you know, nutritional yeast is kind of like that staple in a plant-based home. It adds a savory flavor. Here you will see me using it almost like breadcrumbs. And also, most of it is fortified with B vitamins, B12, which is something that when you go plant-based, you're typically looking for how can I replace or supplement B12. But a lot of times it's supplemented right into your nutritional yeast. So a 1/2 cup of nutritional yeast, 2 teaspoons of smoked paprika, which you know is one of my favorites, half teaspoon of pepper, a half teaspoon of salt, and also I'm adding in a teaspoon of garlic powder. I'm just going to combine that mixture, make sure that it's thoroughly mixed. So you don't have like a salty corner or a place where you have too much pepper. So once you get that nice and evenly mixed up, now you're going to coat your crispy chicken, or your tofu, actually, that will become your crispy chicken. So with that, you're just laying it right in there. So your tofu is nice and moist. So it's going to pick it up on its own. You don't have to make a batter. Very simple. I'm going to be air frying this. So you can pan fry, you can put it in a conventional oven, or you can put it in an air fryer. So for simplicity's sake, today I'm going to put it in the air fryer. And I'm going to move on to another recipe because it's going to take about 15 minutes to get it nice and crispy. One of the things I would recommend, if you do incorporate tofu, which are fermented soybeans, in your plant-based lifestyle, you would definitely always want to get organic. And sometimes you might just want to check out the options if you have access to an Asian market. Sometimes they have different options. You're going to get some nice strips from there. And then here, we're going to focus on our nuggets. Same concept. They're already pre-moistened. You just want to coat them. And then we're going to put them on our grate or shelving for the air fryer. Like I said, you can pan fry them. You'll need a little oil. I find pan frying sometimes a little bit challenging to keep the coating on. And then also, you have to use oil. This option is oil-free. You don't have to use oil for the air fryer. And if you have a little bit of extra nutritional yeast, which I do here, you can just sprinkle a little bit on. If you have any places that are a little bit more sparse with the coating. So looking good already, right? All right, so I'm gonna stick them in the air fryer for 15 minutes, right? So that's our first recipe. Any questions? And I was kind of talking you through it, but you can see how quick that is.
Yeah, so we have a few questions in the chat. Someone asked, do you have an air fryer that you recommend?
The air fryer that I have, I'll take a look at it. I do like the ones that are shelved versus the ones that are baskets. I have one that's a basket. I didn't find it as flexible. But let me see. This one is a Chefman. I'm sure I didn't spend that much on it. I'm thinking around 100 or less, but I don't even remember when I got it. It was a couple years ago, but it does the job. And I use it for a lot. And I like it because the default temperature is 400. It comes on. I don't necessarily need to use a lot of oils with things. And I like the shelves. You could always make it like a basket, but the ones that have a basket, you can't use it like a shelf with the grates where you can get the air, the heat that goes all around on the bottom. Because you'll see with our crispy chicken, I'm not going to flip it over like you have to do your fried chicken. The air is going to go through the grates and crisp the other side as well.
Another person asked, could you repeat the name of the breadcrumbs? And another is asking if you could briefly repeat the seasonings.
Yes, absolutely. So your breadcrumbs are going to be your nutritional yeast. So half a cup of nutritional yeast. And you will get the recipes. They'll be emailed to you from the email that you registered with. So a half a cup of nutritional yeast, that's your breadcrumbs. So your seasonings are 2 teaspoons of smoked paprika, a half a teaspoon of black pepper, a half a teaspoon of Himalayan salt, not iodized salt. We don't use that anymore. And 1 teaspoon of garlic powder. And so that's like the base recipe, right? If you wanted to add, like sometimes I'll add a little sprinkling of like buffalo wing sauce to make it hot. If you like spicy things, you could also add some red chili flakes. So you can play with this. This is going to be your basic, crispy chicken recipe. But you could definitely make it your own. Any other questions?
Yes, we have a few. Someone asked what temperature in the air fryer. Another person is asking, are the pieces placed on parchment or directly on a rack?
Yes, I put it directly on the racks, and mine is 400 for 15 minutes. 400 degrees for 15 minutes and directly on the rack. I have used the parchment, but again, then I find the other side is just not as crispy. And I have a little trick for like getting them off the rack without losing too much of the coating, and I'll show you that when they're done. Any other questions? Did I answer that completely? I know there were a couple questions in there.
I think you did a good job covering that. That's all the questions so far.
Okay, all right, so we're waiting for our chicken to fry. We're gonna move over to our tortilla soup. So again, I kind of focused on my favorites, the things that I like, because they're quick, simple, easy. This one does have a little bit more ingredients, but I love my soups. We made the broth the last time. This is another one of my soups that I just have on hand. It's really quick, it's really easy. And again, you'll take it and make it your own. So you may add some other things to it. So let's kind of go over our ingredients and then I'll show you how to put it together. So 2 medium carrots, a couple tomatoes, 1 big celery stalk, avocado. And with the avocado, we're going to put half the avocado in the mixture of the soup, which is going to make it creamy. And we're going to take half the avocado and use it as a topping. We're going to use half of a bell pepper. We're going to use some cilantro, garlic clove. We're going to use onion. I have an onion, a little funky onion that I'm going to try to use today. Some tortilla chips. This is optional. We're going to use cumin, chili pepper, nutritional yeast, a little Himalayan salt, and smoked paprika. So these are our ingredients. So just the base ingredients for our soup. Oh, and water, of course. And Trisha, can you hand me the water? I forgot to bring it over here. So, and we talked about this in other sessions. If you have a high-powered blender, you can blend it, right in the blender. I use my Vitamix, which people are like, say that it's expensive, but I did get mine used. I've had it for about 15 years. Vitamix is a great company. They'll fix it sometimes for nothing or free. So I highly recommend it as a part of your fixtures in your kitchen as you go plant-based, because you can get almost any texture. And what you'll learn about raw food and plant-based, I'll just say, just say with raw food right now. So when you blend something, you're gonna have multiple levels that you can go to. And it could be the same products that can make a dip, a soup, or a drinkable soup. It just depends on how much you process it. So a lot of times we talk about this being a better option because it's less processed. But there is a lot of processing that goes into vegan and raw food to get the textures. But you can see the processing. It's not in a factory where they're adding a lot of preservatives. So let's go ahead and put our soup together. Oh, one of the things I wanted to mention too, I think it was first session, someone asked about the stainless steels or sometimes even the titanium cutting boards. And since then, I have seen a couple of videos that talk about cutting boards being a source of microplastics, which we're hearing, of course, more and more studies are coming out that microplastics are actually causing problems in the body with hormones, especially that's important for our demographic, older Black women. We're very sensitive about our hormones. We don't need no problems. And also with these microplastics being embedded in parts of the body, causing cancers, and also in the brain. So when someone asked me about the cutting boards, I did answer the question, but I do want to go back and kind of reinforce and say, yeah, definitely. I'm tossing my plastic cutting boards after seeing that the new data, and also seeing someone demonstrate how it can add some microplastics. I have a bamboo, which you can seal with mineral oil, and you can clean it with like a bleach water solution, which is my go-to. So I wrote myself a note to kind of go back and talk a little bit about cutting boards because they are important. We use them. They're having contact with our food. So I don't know about the titanium. If you can afford that, that's fine. Stainless steel is probably good too, although I don't have any yet. So we got our carrots, our tomatoes. And also a part of our soup is some clean water. We start with a half a cup just to get it going, but we may need more as we go. As we've talked about before, sometimes the vegetables, the produce is watery, sometimes it's tougher. So we have to kind of use our eye for determining what consistency and how much liquid we need. And as always, you can always add, I can always add more water, but if it's too watery, that's going to be a problem. I'm not going to be able to get the water out. I'm going to have to add more ingredients. So, all right. So we mentioned that the avocado will be a part of the recipe to make sure the soup is creamy. Because when you have a creamy soup, you want something, something to give that creamy mouthfeel. And just blending up, produce is not going to give it to you. All right, another part that we're going to put in is our bell pepper. Now, I know typically we clean out the bell pepper, we take out these membranes, we take out the seeds, but actually they can be helpful for the body medicinally. Now, I wouldn't just toss a whole bell pepper in there because sometimes I found critters in there, sometimes I found mold in there. So you want to know what you're putting in, but you can definitely blend the seeds and the membrane. They're perfectly fine. And in fact, the seeds can be helpful. All right. So in an onion, I have a You might not be able to see the cutting board with the Vitamix, but I have a little old. Sorry, I knocked something off. Thank you, Trisha. I have an older onion. The recipe calls for a small onion, so I have an older onion that is not doing good on one side, but I want to preserve it. So I'm gonna use it. I'm gonna make my large old onion into a small onion, if that makes sense. So this is gonna be the equivalent of a small onion, and I'll compost the rest of this. Okay. All right, so I got all my produce, and so I'm gonna get it started and come back and add my seasonings. I always want to have a little bit of liquid at the bottom of your Vitamix so that you don't put that much tension or unnecessarily put too much tension on your blades. So I've blended up our produce, and it's even a little bit more watery than when I did the test recipe. And again, it's because your produce is going to have different water contents. So be sparing with the water in the beginning. So one of the things I did forget was my garlic clove. So I'm going to drop the garlic in there. We have a tablespoon of cumin. We have a teaspoon of chili powder. We have 2 tablespoons of nutritional yeast, a teaspoon of Himalayan salt. And remember, Himalayan salt is very salty, so you always want to start slow. That's just a teaspoon. You can always add more. 1 tablespoon of smoked paprika. So I got all my seasonings, including my garlic. All right, it's kind of thick right now. And some people might like it thick. I want it just a little bit thinner. It's actually warming up in the blender. This soup, you can actually put it in a saucepan if you wanted to fully cook it, or you could have it raw like this. Also, with a Vitamix or a high-power blender, you could actually cook it in your blender as well. You can get it over, I think you could get it over 180 degrees if you blend it for a long time. I'm going to keep it raw, but I do want to thin it out just a little bit more. It's got a good flavor. Definitely doesn't need any more sodium. Okay, so we're going to finish our soup off. Let's see, can you see me pouring it? So you got a nice, beautiful, pourable, creamy tortilla soup that is so good and obviously so nutritious with all your produce. With my Vitamix. Okay, so we're going to, you see I forgot my celery. How could I do that? Let me see, what time is it? Okay, we got time. We got a time to do a redo. I know when I'm blending, it goes on mute, but we gotta have the celery. Celery is great for our alkalinity and also for building our bones. I just can't go forward. I just can't act like I had my celery in there and I didn't. Got our soup. And to finish off the soup, we're gonna add our cilantro, and we're gonna add some avocado. And optionally, you can add some tortilla chips. So any questions while I garnish our soup about the tortilla soup?
Yes, we have one. Someone asked, are there any alternate ingredients to make the soup creamy for those with avocado allergies?
Yeah, you can use cashews. That would be a good alternative if you don't do avocado, because cashews from our last sessions don't necessarily have to be um, soaked, so they would be good to give you a creamy texture. And that would be my alternative. You could also use other nuts, but as we mentioned before, um, some nuts, such as walnuts, would need to be soaked before you blended them into your soup. So I would say, off the top, I would say uh, cashews, raw cashews.
Another person asked, do the titanium cutting boards dull your knives?
Oh, absolutely. In my mind, I don't have one, but in my mind, anything that hard would definitely dull your knives. But the key is, if you're moving to plant-based, you're doing your own clean processing of your food. We're back to you're going to find a place where you can get your knives sharpened on a regular basis because they're going to get dull. And dull knives are very dangerous. They slip and you can get cut. So, yep, that's true. Um, I like the bamboo because it is softer, so it's easier on your knives. They stay sharper because the bamboo is so soft. But the flip side of that is that you have to seal it regularly with mineral oil, and also you have to clean them while you use them. You check the time with a bleach water solution because they're soft, things can get inside and build up bacteria. So, yeah, maybe I'll get a gift of a titanium cutting board. But in the meantime, I'm going to experiment with getting some stainless steel uh, cutting boards. Let's see. Any other questions?
Yeah, someone is asking about um, keeping a wood cutting board clean.
Mhm. Get a couple of pictures of that. Okay, yes. The wood, of course, is softer, like the bamboo. And that's what I was saying, that I just use like a tablespoon of bleach to about 8 ounces of water. And like last time I got my Safe Serve renewed, that was the standard that you have like some weak bleach water to clean your surfaces in between uses. So yeah, but so it's twofold. Mineral oil is going to protect it and keep your board from cracking. And as in between mineral oils, which is like once a month, you're going to clean it with a weak bleach water spray. Any other questions?
Someone is asking if there's a substitute for onion and garlic.
If there's a substitute, um, it depends on the person because I would immediately say leeks, but I wouldn't necessarily do leeks raw. I would saute leeks for that. What we're going for the garlic and the onion is more like the sulfur savory. And I think you could get that also from leeks, but if you're allergic to both of them, you may be allergic to leeks too. So um, I need a little bit more clarification. Is it a preference from allergies? Because leeks are in that family of onions, and it may be, you may have a continuation of reaction for that. But for flavor, I would go with caramelized leeks. So I really like it because, yeah, it does look delicious. Who is that? BB? um, you have your cilantro, which I love cilantro. It's so good for pulling metals out of your body. That's why sometimes you'll eat cilantro or asparagus and you pee and it smells a little bit metallic because it's drawing out the metals. Of course, the tortilla chips, they just taste good. They're not healthy. No. But you got your avocado, again, for more fat for brain health. So I just think it's just very healthful. A lot of different textures going here, but very simple to make. All right. So now I'm switching boards and I want to give you an update on our chicken. Can you see the chicken? Got our strips here. That's one nugget, but most of the nuggets are on the other tray. Our cutlets. Now, I didn't put any oil because this was oil free, but you can spray, the racks with oil and make them come off a little bit easier. My trick is to let them cool down for a few minutes and to use a metal spatula, like metal on metal, and it usually lifts it up for me. So let's look at our chicken. So these are our nuggets. Oh, these nuggets are just falling off. That's great. Sometimes I'll admit, sometimes I have to fight them a little bit. They don't want to let go. Oh, these are coming off pretty good. Showing out. And your strips, which are great for dipping. You could dip it right into your soup. Okay, any questions so far?
We've covered them.
All right, great. We're all caught up. So just to let you see where we are, we got our fried crispy chicken. And I mean, it is crispy. You can see like I don't want to eat it because I need to talk, but I want to put it in my mouth so bad. But you can see the nuggets are a little bit browner because they're smaller, less surface area. So they cooked a little bit more done versus the cutlets. And so sometimes we just need, in the vegan world, we just need something to remind us of our childhood. This to me is savory. It smells good. You got the garlic powder, the nutritional yeast, the salt and pepper. It just smells good. And the texture, the mouthfeel is there for you. If you want, more moist, the bigger pieces, the strips, the cutlets. If you want more dry, the chicken nuggets definitely are drier for the same temperature, 400 degrees for 15 minutes. So that's a nice meal right there. So now I'm going to move on. So we got Almond Heaven Cookies. Let me go over the ingredients. So again, this is going to be a grain-free cookie, and this is also no bake. So I'm using almond flour, almond butter. My sweetener today is maple syrup, and I'm using maple syrup in another recipe for today too. And vanilla extract and Himalayan salt. Just a pinch, that's optional. So very few recipes, very few ingredients, 4, maybe 5 ingredients. And you have these no-bake cookies that are quick, really fast. You want something sweet. And also so one of the things that I've been experimenting with as a menopausal woman is, insulin sensitivity, not eating things that's going to drive my blood sugar up, causing a huge insulin release, causing my body over time to become desensitized to the insulin that is produced by my pancreas. So because my pancreas is now 57, it's not working the same way when it was 27. So to me, these heavy Almond Heaven cookies, they're high fat, so it's very low carb. And to me, that is one of the best ways to break your fast. So to have it as your first meal of the day or part of a first meal. Also, it's good at the end of the day because it helps to cut hunger, because for a small amount, you get a lot of calories. It's very nutritionally dense in terms calorically. All right, so let's put our ingredients together. And I will need some gloves. Can you hand me my gloves? So 1 cup of almond flour. Then we have, and I use this organic almond butter. You can also make almond butter. It's a little bit advanced, but I just go ahead and buy it. It's easier for me. This is not raw, so this is not an all raw recipe, but it's a very good, quality non-GMO almond butter. But that's what I'm going to use to keep my cookies formed, and also it adds the good fat. Okay, so I got 4 tablespoons. So I'm going to give you an option. I'm going to put 3 to 4 tablespoons on your recipe because it works with 3 tablespoons too. But if you're really concerned about calories, you could do the 3. I'm doing the 4, but there we go. All right. So 4 tablespoons of almond butter, then 2 tablespoons of maple syrup I just put in, and then 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. So that's it. And actually I have a cookie from my testing day. So that's what we're going for. That's the goal. I'll put that right here. Take a picture of it. But I have to work my cookies now. So I'm going to use some gloves. Gets really, really messy. And I'm also going to use a fork. I like using a fork to break it up versus a spoon. I just find the fork just works so much better in mixing the flour with the almond butter. All right, so just going in here and mashing it a bit and just working it. So I'm gonna take about 5 minutes to really work it together, and then I'll throw the fork to the side, and then I'll use my hands to knead it. So all I'm doing is getting all the ingredients together. Okay. And once my almond butter is covered with the almond flour, it's not going to stick to my gloves as much. Okay. And also, in the culinary world, we work at opposites, and also to get like all the satiating parts in our brain to feel like, wow, this is complete, we add some salt. Usually if you have something sweet, you have a little bit of salt on the other scale. So just a pinch, but it does make a difference in terms of being able to taste the sweetness of the cookie. For some reason, pinch of salt, Himalayan salt, right? Our mineral salt is going to enhance that sweetness. So we did use 2 tablespoons of maple syrup as our sweetener. You can try other sweeteners. One of the things we've been talking about sweeteners in this series, and from my research, I'm starting to think that the sugar glucose response in different sweeteners may be bio-individual, meaning I could eat some maple syrup and it doesn't make my blood sugar go up, but somebody else could have the same amount and it does. So it really makes me, as like a nerdy person, it makes me want to get my own continuous glucose monitor so that I can know what it's doing for me, because I read this week about some people having a glucose response to stevia. And stevia is a plant. It looks a lot like peppermint. And we do process it to make it look like a sugar. So maybe it's the processing, but some people are responding with a elevated sugar response, which is it's a 0-calorie natural sweetener. So it's supposed to have 0. So, but it may be based on the individual. At this point, I'm going to make them into cookies. yesterday, one recipe gave me 7 cookies. So we may have about, 14 cookies. So that's what I would be aiming for, 14 cookies out of this. You're gonna get it in a teaspoon mode, tablespoon mode, and get that shape for your cookie. And you see they're very well held together by the almond butter. They're not going anywhere, which is great. So this is a nice keto-friendly vegetarian snack. Okay, I did break it up right there. Putting my fork marks. Let me get a few more. Any questions about the cookies while I mold them out?
Someone has asked if you purchased your used blender directly from Vitamix.
If I purchase my Vitamix used?
Yeah, if you bought it from Vitamix.
Yes, I did. I did buy it from Vitamix. It's kind of hidden on their site. It might be, they move it around sometimes, but it may be under sale. But they have what you call refurbished Vitamix for a fraction of the cost. I think this one was like a $500 model that I got for, it might have been under 200. And of course, you could always replace your canisters, but the main thing you want this this motor. And the motor, the canisters themselves are kind of pricey though, about $100. But when you're talking about something that you can buy used and have for 15 years and it still works just as good to process your food, if you amortize the cost of a $20 blender that you have to constantly replace, it's just no comparison. Now, another place where I find a lot of Vitamixes, and I used to just for sport, I used to buy them like on Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist and resell them to my students. I would get them refurbished myself, send them to Vitamix. At this time, I don't have any. I haven't been in the habit of doing that. I kind of even got off Facebook. But there are so many people who, at the beginning of the year, they will say, "Oh, I'm going to lose whatever," and they spend thousands of dollars on equipment, and then the next year or by the end of even a few months, they're not using it anymore. So I know it's a very personal item. But like I said, the parts that are touching the food, you can replace. But if you can find a good price on a Vitamix used, I would say get it because it's going to be definitely worth it. And it's something that people don't necessarily hold on to if they're not serious about using it. And they're very, very flexible. To buy something 15 years ago and it's still doing everything you need. And they have them. And I'll say one more thing because I can get on a tangent with this. It's a great investment. I can see having this one for many more years. And the times that I've had problems, it's an American company in Ohio, I believe. I just call them. They work it out with me. Sometimes I've got free shipping to go back and forth. But yeah, it's definitely something that I would say you could buy used. Now, other brands like you guys seen me use a NutriBullet. I don't necessarily think that's, unless you're getting it for darn near free, because those things burn out quickly. And they're cheap. But for something this expensive, you could buy used and you could well maintain it. But yeah, they have it on the site, but I would try some other places as well. Any other questions?
Yes, someone asked if the cookies freeze well if you make a large batch.
If they freeze well, I've never Yeah, they're such a hit. I don't know. You'd have to give it a try. They're somewhat dry, so I don't know. Um, what I would say is make a half batch, but you do want to keep them in the refrigerator. But I wouldn't make a lot and freeze them. I don't know what the result would be, but that's a good question. Any other questions?
That's all for now.
Okay, great. All right, so the next recipe that we have is, it's a couple different recipes that I'm putting all together. I'm gonna make some quick nut milk. So let me just go over the ingredients with you. And the reason why this is so important, I think, is because there was a lawsuit with Diamond Almonds for their almond milk because when they tested it, it had no almonds in it whatsoever, which is very distressing. To think you're buying almond milk, you're paying $5 a half gallon or whatever, and you're not really getting any almonds in it. So we can make our own nut milk, which may not be as convenient, but definitely you know what you're getting. So today I'm making the quick nut milk because this is the nut milk that you can make that does not need any soaking. So, you know, we've been talking about nuts, and certain nuts have to be soaked before you can use them because otherwise you'll have a buildup in your body of nutrients, anti-enzymes that kind of block the absorption of enzymes. For the example of walnuts and almonds. If they're not cooked or soaked, you're going to build up. So that's why that's a great nut milk, but I don't put that on the quick nut milk list because those need soaking. With the quick nut milk that we're about to make, all you need is a cup of coconut shreds that are unsweetened, or you could also, the alternative would be, thank you, a cup of raw cashews and 4 cups of water. And we're just gonna blend it, run it through a nut milk bag, and then you have 4 cups of milk. And the price that I came up with is 30 cents per serving. But actually, I was factoring in my strawberries because I'm making strawberry milk. So it's even cheaper than that. We're going to use our Vitamix. We're going to use a cup of coconut shreds and water. That's it. A cup of coconut shreds and water, and we're going to have milk. So I'll put my water in first because remember, we always want some kind of liquid at the base. Whatever we're blending, we want to keep our blender alive, right? One of the things I like about the Vitamix blender too is they're, you know, calibrated. You can see how much your ingredients are. So 4 cups of water, 1 cup of coconut shreds. I'm gonna blend now. All right, that's your coconut milk. It's done. So it's a little bit of, and this is somewhat why I did this at the end. So it's a little bit of finagling to separate your shreds from your, you know, your milk, so that your milk is really, really smooth. So this is a nut milk bag. It, you know, allows the liquids to flow through while catching your fiber. And you know, even these coconut shreds, you can use them to make crackers and breads and things like that. So you definitely can reuse it. These shreds for their fiber. And also you can see as I'm squeezing the nut milk bag, we're getting some of the coconut fat, which is really good for your brain. Remember, your brain is mostly fat. I feel like a low fat focus over the last 25, 30 years might be impacting our brain health as we look at our health outcomes. They demonized fat and took it out of the food chain. So I think we need some fats in our food. Even if as we're going plant-based. So there's your coconut milk that's more fat content. And I'm gonna use that too. Put it in my jar. All right, so there's your coconut milk. Now with this coconut milk, it can stay in your refrigerator for about 3 days, okay? You can change the flavor. So today, I'm gonna make strawberry coconut milk. You can add vanilla and make a maple syrup to have that vanilla flavored nut milk that some people like. Also, you can use cacao powder, 2 tablespoons of cacao powder with a little bit of maple syrup would make chocolate milk. So those are 4 different variations that you can make very cheaply, very quickly, no soaking. And so I'm gonna go back now and make my strawberry milk. Pull my, got a little mess going on here. The milk is a little messy. I will admit to that. That's why we're doing it last. All right, so now I got my strained milk, put it back into my Vitamix. These are my organic pre-washed strawberries. So I don't wash strawberries until I'm right about to use it, because you wash them, you take off the natural protectants, and then you put them back in the refrigerator, and don't they mold fast? Don't they go bad? So don't touch them until you're ready. So I just washed them right before we came, we came together. And I am going to leave on my strawberry leaves. They're not poisonous. In fact, they add some minerals. You can cut them off, but as long as they're organic, they're not going to contain any pesticides, and they're not poisonous. They're actually edible. So these strawberries are pretty young. They're not going to be sweet. So I'm just going to add a tad bit of maple syrup. Again, if we're, as we're focusing on, low glycemic index, we don't want to use a lot of sweetener. But again, we want to make the recipes where they're sticky, where you want to come back to it, where it's delicious, not just tasting medicinal, although there's nothing wrong with medicinal tasting. Right, good timing. All right, ready for our strawberry milk. You could add ice to it and blend it up and make it more like a freezy. Of course, that's going to thin out the flavor. But this is one of my favorite drinks, is the strawberry milk out of the coconut milk. So that was 1 cup of strawberries that I blended into the coconut milk. The coconut milk is just 1 cup of coconut to 4 cups of water. Any questions?
Yes, someone has asked, what do you call that bag? And where do we get it from? I think they're referring to the nut milk bag.
Yeah, so the nut milk bag, that's the name of it. And honestly, this is before I broke up with Jeff Bezos, but I got them off of Amazon. But they are available, which I don't use anymore. But they are available like in any like raw food culinary websites. People have their own products. They should be relatively inexpensive. I think I got like 3 for $20. They last for years. I've had these nut milk bags for years. In fact, I think I got a pack of 3, and I've only been using 1. I think I still have 2 that have never been used. But they're good for a lot of straining purposes, and it's just fine mesh. Let me show you also. Then maybe if we keep going and we get more advanced, I can show you crackers and breads that you could actually use. What we usually call waste, you can reuse it. So this is basically just coconut fibers. We can make cookies out of this. We can make ice cream out of this. We can make crackers, bread. So it's good food. So I'm going to be traveling, so I'll probably have to compost this. But, just the mindset of someone who uses raw food is like, how can I use every single part of it? Because, the quality is good. There's no pesticides, no herbicides. So how can I reuse it?
Another asked if the bag is made out of cotton or nylon.
No, this is nylon, not cotton. I have not seen a nut milk bag that was cotton. So I don't know. This is the type that I've been using for years, but it is nylon.
And another person is asking, since you don't use Amazon anymore, what is your alternative?
If I had to buy some right now, I would Google nut milk bag. I haven't had to buy any raw food supplies in a while because they last for a long time. So what I can do is I can Google myself and do a little bit of research and give that information to the administrative geniuses at ZAMI NOBLA and have that sent out to you with the recipe. Because off the top of my head, I can't think of a place to direct you.
Thank you.
Other questions?
None so far.
Oh, that's great. All right, so we got caught up with our questions. I'm trying to get a good view, island side view of our strawberry milk, our Almond Heaven cookies, our Crispy Chix'n, and our Tortilla Soup. All came out really good. The cookies, a little bit dry here when I got toward the end. So that means I probably could have massaged them a little better, got the butter flowing a little better. But otherwise, everything came out great. Yeah, so just to recap some of the things that we went over in terms of food science, I still go for the organic tofu. I think there's something in Asian culinary practices that is protective with tofu, with the soy, but I only use organic. This is extra firm pressed. That's how you can utilize it. If you get the silky, you will have silk. It will be mushy. So you have to get the extra firm pressed. One of the reasons why the tortilla soup is one of my favorites. You saw all the rich produce, the celery, the carrots, the tomatoes, all in one place, your onions, your garlic. So it's good, it's healthful, it's not full of fillers. A lot of the soups are full of wheat. So you think, why would soup have wheat? But look at the canned soups and see what the main ingredients. A lot of times it's the fillers that are grains. Also cornstarch. This is totally clean. My quick Almond Heaven cookies and my quick nut milk and with the strawberries. These are some of my favorite things, and they're done very simply and quickly. So I'm very happy to share them with you. So thank you, everybody. Thank you for playing with ZAMI NOBLA, Carla Rabb DeRosa, in our Plant Play Session 3.